Hello, welcome to the Nintendo Bros Podcast. This is Pete,
And this is Derek.
and we are two brothers, and we talk about video games.
Yes,
And
we do.
We haven't really talked in a while, have we, Derek? It's been a couple weeks.
No. Yeah, I had a move, so it took me a while to get my internet all set up.
Okay, and are you all settled now? All your systems and games are set up and ready to go?
Yeah, I think I'm good to go. I got all my game setup is all good. And my internet was a little bit of a headache, but that's all good now too. So yeah, I'm set up.
Wow, cool. I mean, I guess we both moved in the last 6 months, so we'll be probably put for a while, huh?
Yes, exactly.
Which is good for more gaming. So this will be the last time for our listeners out there. This will be the last time we ever have this delay again because we won't be moving. Right, Derek?
Yeah. That's the only reason we have delays.
That's That's the only our lives revolve around where we live. Kind of do. Let's just jump right into it, Derek. So there's some news to kind of catch up on, but I think the major news recently was the Sony State of Play, the March State of Play. Did you watch it?
Yeah, I didn't watch it live, but I watched it maybe an hour or two ago. So yeah, I've seen the whole thing.
Cool. Yeah, I watched it live. What are your overall thoughts? Like, I mean, I know there's one announcement in here that I think you really liked, but what are your overall thoughts? Because I thought it was terrible.
There were a few things that were pretty awesome, and there was a few things that I didn't really care about.
Okay, well, let's go through it. I have the list of everything they announced because there's only about 12 things that they showed.
Yeah, let's go in order.
The first one is called Futuristic Exosuits. It's called Exoprimal. It's a Capcom game where you're fighting dinosaurs. Comes out in 2023. Looked kind of like a mix of Returnal mixed with like Lost Odyssey.
I'm sorry, it did not look like Returnal at all.
Not Lost Odyssey. Is it Lost Odyssey? Did you ever play those games? Well, it just had some of that third-person shooter. This looks
like Outriders and Anthem with dinosaurs.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. I don't know. To me, the suits look very Returnal.
You gotta play Returnal.
I've never played Returnal. Maybe it's just the name that reminds me of Returnal.
Yeah,
Exoprimal just sounds like Returnal.
Yeah, it's not Returnal.
I don't know what to make of this. I mean, it's early, but who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who knows? Didn't show any gameplay.
To me, it doesn't interest me at all. I'm worried it's going to be like a always online. I'm worried it's going to be like Babylon's Fall.
Game as a service, yeah.
Yeah, I just, I really, really want a dinosaur game, and this is the exact opposite of what I'd want out of a dinosaur game. So it just does not interest me.
Yeah, I want a dinosaur game too. I mean, Mario Odyssey wasn't enough.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree.
Anyway, so I mean, did you ever play the Ark survival games?
No, there's one it's on Game Pass, right? Or it's on PS Plus.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't play it. My old roommate, he played that game a lot, so he told me all about it. Look, it sounds really cool. But no, I never played it.
I mean, it's kind of speaking of dinosaur games,
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, moving on. After that, they showed a brand new Ghostwire Tokyo trailer. Comes out in like 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. What did you think?
I don't know what to make of this one because the gameplay snippets are so quick that it's really hard to tell. I honestly have no idea. Like, I mean, after the trailer, I can see it getting anywhere from a 65 Metacritic area to an 88 Metacritic area. Like, I really cannot tell at all. I don't know what it's about.
Agree.
I think the fact that they're marketing it this late, doesn't bode well for their confidence in it. I think that's why I'm less excited, but it certainly looks interesting,
Yeah, I think it looks really cool. I'm more gung-ho about it than you. Simply because it's Tango and
it's on PS5. Like, I have no way to play it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I do agree with you though. It's such fast clips, and the only time they've shown a bit longer of a gameplay, it looked a little bit slow. There wasn't a lot of kind of dashing and quick kind of gameplay. Mm-hmm. But I do like the kind of atmosphere behind it. So I hope it reviews well and it actually ends up being kind of has good combat. That's what I really care about. Is the combat is interesting enough to hold you through the game.
And so Tango is a Japanese developer, right?
Yeah.
And what's their previous game to this?
The Evil Within 2.
But not number 1?
They made number 1 as well.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize those were made by a Japanese studio.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess Bethesda, that's like their one Japanese branch, I guess, huh? Cool. I mean, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. It could go either way though.
Yeah. After that I mean, sorry, regardless of how it does review wise with Ghostwire Tokyo, it's important to remember that a year from now, it'll be on Game Pass.
Yeah.
And like, something like even like Deathloop, like that's what I'm actually looking forward to playing, the now patched, souped up DLC added plus version for free in September. So
I'll be honest, it's not a good enough game to get hyped about that. don't
my
get
hype is about as much as I would have for some nachos, like very low.
Yeah.
But it's something I will download and play.
Some nachos. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it depends how hungry I am,
Yeah.
But I think for me, Ghostwire, unless it like, unless I end up finding and getting a PS5 and it gets kind of this amazing, it has something special that I haven't seen yet, I'll probably just wait for that day it comes to Game Pass for free.
Yeah, you'll never play it on PS5. I just know.
Yeah.
There's no way you're gonna buy a PS5 and that will be one of the 5 games you buy.
I mean, unless it like gets like a 90 on Metacritic and it's like, wow, it's like a beautiful mix of horror and combat and it's,
Yeah, but
I don't think so. So the next game they showed was Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy. There's a demo that came out just today. Are you going to download the demo, Derek?
I honestly would or will, but I have so many games. Like I have 5 or 6 games I need to play in the next month. So I might get to it eventually in the summer, if it's still if there's still a demo available. But I do want to play it. It looks really cool. I just haven't don't have the time for it. It's on the back burner of the back burner.
I mean, yeah, we're living in a post Elden Ring world now, right? Everything's changed.
Yeah, and Elden Ring, and then Mario Kart's on the horizon. So
yeah, totally. It's just funny because we both guessed the exact same score on our Metacritic review. What are we calling it again? A
Metacritic prediction
fantasy league prediction fantasy league.
Yeah, something like that.
It's
not quite a fantasy league.
Anyways, for our listeners, Derek and I, we have a kind of a fantasy league Metacritic predictions where a group of us predict the scores of games coming out. And for Final Fantasy Stranger in Paradise, like we guess the same scores. So like I have no stake in it anymore. You know what I mean?
I think it'll do. I only have a stake because it sounds fun.
Well, I
guess
the
guys that made Neo and Neo 2.
I guess what I'm trying to say is whether it does bad or good, you and I we get the identical points. So
yeah, but I mean, to me, you care more about the scores than I do. I care more about good games to play eventually. And that game looks like it'll be fun. It's online. It's co-op. There's a lot of stuff to it. It looks pretty fun. I trust the developer. I mean, I think it'll review quite well.
It's interesting though, watching this trailer, especially after Babylon's Fall came out a week ago. They're kind of, just as an outsider, I'm not a Final Fantasy fan or a big fan of these kind of games, but they look similar, like this kind of game, like 4-player online, and it's just interesting how they're both from these action developers. One being Platinum, and the other being Tecmo Koei, who made Ninja Gaiden. And it used to feel like Platinum was like the god of the action game. Like they were unstoppable. And it just kind of shows now how it's not quite that anymore.
Totally,
especially with Tecmo Koei's Neo 2 looking far better than anything from the Ninja Gaiden team. And now this game coming out a few weeks later and looking so much better.
I know. It's almost funny that Square Enix is having these 2 games come out. And it's like, as much as people joke about this Chaos and Stranger of Paradise being a kind of a meme, it looks significantly better than Babylon's Fall, and it's kind of crazy that these 2 games are releasing back to back
from the same studio, from the same publisher.
Yeah, they must have known that Babylon's Fall was just going to tank, so they're just kind of like, let's put this out first because it's not going to do well anyways. So I don't know. It's a stark difference in quality in my mind.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm still.
I've never loved Platinum games. Like I've enjoyed a few of them, but I've never thought they were the end all be all.
No, they're never like in my top echelon. But they have some of my favorite games ever, so I can't deny that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm interested about this one. This is probably something that down the line, if it's cheap or if it's on Game Pass, and my friends are into it, I'll grab it.
Yeah, I'm the same.
And I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. So yeah, the next game they showed was Forspoken, which just the other day got delayed till October, and they showed a little bit more of the gameplay and some of the combat. What did you think?
I actually want to ask what you think first, because you're someone that is a bit harder on this game than I was or I am. So I'm curious about how this trailer made you feel.
Truthfully, I mean, it actually looks better than last time when they showed it. Last time they showed kind of like a sustained gameplay demo, and this time it was just like the highlight clips. I still don't think it looks good. To me, it looks kind of like a janky version of Insomniac's, what's that series called? Not Insomniac, Sucker Punch's.
Oh, Infamous.
Infamous. Like, it looks like kind of the powers
that's
of
how
that.
I feel. Yeah.
But jankier, and I think I've never heard of this developer, the Luminos team, so I don't know what to expect from them. Yeah, I still kind of feel like this has 7 out of 10 written all over it, and I think it's one of those things like Biomutant that looks good from afar but far from good.
No, that's a good way to put it. Again, I'm the opposite. I think I am skeptical still, because I do agree with you. There's some rough patches and there's some things that don't quite sit right with me. But I think the visuals look really awesome. I think the spells look really, really cool. Mm-hmm. And at least this time they show that there's more than just a horde of enemies just kind of walking towards you.
Yeah, the dragon looked really cool.
Yeah, there's actually like some interesting combat there. But I agree. I'm interested about reviews, and I'm interested about how this delay will change the game. Hopefully it'll polish up and look a bit better, mm-hmm. Play a bit better.
I was glad to see some environments that weren't like all brown, like the grassy areas. That was refreshing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the highest end this game is going to see is maybe like a low 80s on Metacritic, and then get like a really good sequel.
I agree. I think it's them figuring it out, and I could see that again. Like I think it'll be 70s, but I agree with you. I think the sequel, if they make it, will be a big improvement.
Yeah, I think the one caveat a lot of open world games are going to fall on this year is that they're going to have. I mean, obviously, there's a big shadow looming of Elden Ring, and like people are still going to be playing Elden Ring when these other games come out, even if they're delayed till October. And it's just kind of like if this game suffers from that kind of checklist, with towers and copy and paste mm-hmm. enemy bases and that kind of thing across the whole world, like I think reviewers are going to be harder on every open world game now. Literally to the point where I think if Horizon Forbidden West had come out a month later, it would have suffered like 5 points on Metacritic.
I totally agree.
So I think that's something to keep in mind. I mean, not quality withstanding, I think as far as our Metacritic guesses goes, when we're thinking about that, like we need to consider that we're in a post Elden Ring world.
Mm-hmm. I know, yeah, it's definitely changed up the formula for what we kind of expect from open worlds now.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's going to be a matter of, hey, do I want to jump into this huge open world, or do I want to just keep playing Elden Ring? That's a question. So after that, they showed off.
I think you might be the only person that isn't done Elden Ring by then, but
I'll probably be the person who's not even at 50% yet. But I'm still huge. Anyways, after Forspoken, they showed off Gundam Evolution, which it looks like a free to play first-person shooter action game. Almost looks like they're taking a page from Overwatch.
Honestly, I fast forwarded this segment. I didn't care at all.
Okay, I mean, yeah, free to play usually goes in one eye, out the other. After that was what I thought was the best announcement of the whole thing. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Cowabunga Collection. It has an amazing amount of games with it. I don't know. I mean, to me, I'm all over this. It has like 2 of my childhood classic games, and 2 of the reasons that I keep my my hacked SNES mini plugged in. Is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, and Tournament Fighter. Do you remember those games, Derek?
I love them both. I was going to say the same thing. I remember both those games fondly, and probably some of my most played SNES games.
Yeah, I was stoked when they announced Tournament Fighters, because, I mean, these are different developers that made these games. I'm surprised they were able to collect them all. It's even got Turtles Arcade, the Game Boy version. That I think it's got that really hard game on the NES as well.
They even have... there's some Game Boy game, the third one that came out, where you're playing as Mikey, and it's like almost like a precursor to Castlevania. Some guy said.
Oh wow!
Yeah, there's some really cool. Like I asked Reset Era because I had no idea. I just posted. And I said, "Can someone explain the difference of all these games? Because a lot of them look like they're kind of overlapped." And they were just talking about how the Turtles in Time. There's kind of like 3 or 4 renditions, and they have slightly different bosses or levels or mechanics. but they said the tournament fighter games, the 3 of them, are completely different games.
Oh, interesting.
Like they're not like, oh, one guy thought of the idea and took it from the other. It's like someone said, hey, make a fighting turtles game, and just gave it to these different companies, and they just did whatever they wanted on their own. So completely different games.
Cool. Weird
Yeah.
though. Yeah, I mean, this is a day one for me. Just as a note, it's coming to every system. So even though they announced it here, it's coming to Xbox and Switch.
I was gonna say you're gonna get it on the Switch, I assume.
Yeah, I'm gonna get this in Shredder's Revenge on Switch. So Switch will be
I'm the same.
the official best in Turtles system ever. But yeah, this was definitely the bit like this was a nice drop. And I think there's a little bit of within this state of play, Sony is trying to show that they're, I don't know, catering to an indie gamer crowd a little bit. I don't know if you got that vibe with Gundam Evolution and Turtles, and I guess that's it.
I think they were just trying to fill up their palette, honestly.
Yeah, true. And we'll talk about our overall thoughts at the end. So after that, they showed off Gigabash, which is like a multiplayer game. I don't care about it.
I fast forwarded that one as well.
And then after that, they had Jojo's.
I can tell about it in about 5 seconds whether it's fast forward or not.
Yeah, I don't fast forward because I was watching it live. I can't go in time. But after that was Gigabash. Sorry, like going the same one. After that was JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I don't. This is kind of like too anime. I'm not into.
Yeah, I'm not. I've never watched that show, but my 2 friends that I play Smash Bros with, they love that show. So I told them about it, and I have a feeling they're going to want to play that. So it'll be interesting.
I mean, it's a game series that's been around for a while. I think it's nice it's even coming to the West. After that, they showed Battle Through Hell and Back in Trek to Yami, which is that black and white.
Like the samurai kind of game, right?
Yeah, it actually kind of caught my interest, but we'll see, you know?
Yeah, it looked interesting, kind of what it was. I want to see more and kind of how the gameplay works, but it seems cool and unique, but I don't know if it would actually be fun for me.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It really depends on how it controls, too.
Yeah.
After that is what I think you are happy about, which is Returnal Ascension, which is adding co-op through the campaign and the Tower of Sisyphus mode, which looks like an endless tower.
Yeah, it's an endless mode, yeah.
Are you stoked?
Freaking stoked. I've already messaged 2 of my friends about it. I can't wait.
So was this not known about?
People speculate about DLC because Housemarque 1 makes a lot of DLC for like what's the Next Machina, or what's the game that came out, or sorry, Resogun. I don't want to think Next Machina. Resogun, they had a lot of DLC, so people weren't surprised that they were going to put DLC. And in one of their updates, they changed some of the layouts of menus to like leave spaces vacant almost. So people didn't really know what it was. I suspect there might even be more DLC on the way, but who knows? They might just be focusing on a new game. But yeah, it's freaking awesome. I have a few downsides. One is the co-op the endless mode. You can't do co-op in the endless mode, which I thought was annoying.
That's weird.
So I hope they patch that in as soon as possible.
That's really. I wonder if it's just because the tower mode's brand new and it took them extra time to put co-op in the campaign.
Yeah,
so
that's what I think they're probably. I couldn't imagine them not trying to implement that in the next couple of months. But yeah, so I'm really excited. It looks like they're adding some new guns, which I'm always down for, and some new bosses. So yeah, I'm really, really stoked. I already have 2 friends lined up to play some co-op with, and then I'll do the endless mode probably a lot.
Cool. Well, I'm happy that you're happy.
Yeah, I hope you eventually get to experience that game.
It comes out. I mean, this DLC comes out this month too, right?
Yeah, March 22nd.
So that's a pretty cool. I mean, busy gaming time this month. It's like this March has been one for the record books.
That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to go through March and maybe at the end of the podcast and just there's so many games.
Yeah, it's almost ridiculous. So they ended the state of play with 2 brand new announcements from Square Enix.
Just as a side note, did you feel like probably 60% of this show was Square Enix? It's almost just like a Square Enix show.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, well, not. I mean, looking at the list here, not exactly. They had some Capcom.
I don't know. Forspoken, Final Fantasy, Chaos. These 2 games.
Well, sorry. I think the first one's Capcom. My bad. This Diofield Chronicle. I believe it's Capcom.
No, it's not.
Isn't
Are
it?
you? I'm pretty sure they're both Square Enix. They said these last two games are both Square Enix.
I thought it was
games.
just the last one that was Square Enix.
I think they said both. I'm like 99% sure because there was. I actually am 100% sure.
No, you're right. You're right. They're both from Square Enix. Yeah, there is a lot of Square Enix here.
Yeah.
These last two games, Diofield Chronicle and Valkyrie Elysium, didn't interest me in the least.
The Diofield one interests me. I want to see more. One, I just like strategy RPG games like this. And two, apparently has a really awesome lineup of directors and art directors and writers from a lot of other SRPG games.
Okay.
I don't know all these people, but I just saw people talking about the names behind this game that are like kind of mind blowing. It's like, oh, a lot of the development teams made like Disgaea 5 and certain games that like are really, really good.
Okay.
So I mean, again, I don't know much about it, but I'm more interested in that than the other game, which was, what is it, Valkyrie
Elysium.
something, Elysium. That game didn't interest me at all.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, overall, the whole entire state of play didn't interest me at all. I mean, outside of the Ninja Turtle game, I don't see myself...
What you're getting on the Switch.
Which I'm going to get on the Switch. So, to me, I'd give it a 3 out of 10. I thought this was a chance for Sony to show what they have this year, but I guess it's different with Sony because they have third parties and they don't operate like Nintendo where they kind of handle every quarter of their year with releases, you know?
Yeah, and don't forget that a lot of their big developers are not Japanese studios, right? They don't
exactly.
Really as crazy it is, like, you know, all of their big games from Sucker Punch, Sony, Santa Monica, Naughty Dog, those are not Japanese developers.
But then why do a state of play that focuses on Japanese developers? Like, why not just, you know?
Because maybe they have some certain contract with them to promote those games a certain number of times, and maybe those developers wanted to come out and show stuff, and Sony said, sure, we'll set up something and make a little, you know, whatever. Or maybe they're saying, you know, here's the stuff by these guys because we're going to show you our stuff in a month or two or at E3, and that'll be our stuff focused. I really don't know.
Well, I just find it funny because you know, when Nintendo has one of their directs, like the list of announcements is triple this, you know, and it seems to be that's pretty consistent with.
Yeah, but never has Sony State of Plays been as big as the directs. They're always about these 20 minutes of, you know, 5 or 6 kind of bigger trailers, and that's it.
Yeah, but is that better? Because I mean, from what I'm seeing, these are the hype around a Nintendo Direct and like just the pedigree and people being excited for them is just so much higher than these or Microsoft's announcements. And I think they'd like to have what Nintendo has with that level of promotion.
I think you kind of nailed it on the head where, you know, Nintendo, they're so reliant on first party games and their first party IP that they just have to keep pumping those games out and keep showing them off. And that they always have games coming. You know what I mean? Where if you think about God of War, like Studio Santa Monica, they spent 6 years making that game right now. So it's not like, you know, does that make sense? Like their first party studios, they don't have as many games to show off all the time, so they have to rely on those third parties to kind of fill. Well,
they're also, like you said, they're making tentpole 6-year games. Like Naughty Dog takes 5 or 6 years to make a game now.
Yeah.
Where HAL Laboratory can release a Kirby every 2 years.
Exactly, and I'm just
totally,
saying
yeah. No, I totally get it. And also we're like, sorry,
and they have third-party exclusives. Is all I'm trying to say. So like they don't really have control over those exclusives as much as Nintendo has over all their first-party franchises. You know what I mean? Like even for example, Ghostwire Tokyo, we can say it looks good or looks bad, but Sony doesn't really have too much of a say of how it's actually going to turn out.
Yeah, true. And I guess in a lot of big games like, you know, the Ubisoft, Far Cry type of games, EA type of games, like they'll show their games on their own time, where they're not necessarily at a Sony state of play. But I mean, it still does feel to me like there's not a lot coming out this year. I mean, I know we just kind of commented about how great this March is and how many games there are, but like once we're past March, it doesn't sound like there's much coming from April until summer for the next-gen systems, especially exclusive next-gen games.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's a lull, but, you know, pandemic and you know, there's a war going on. I'm not surprised that things are...
True, but I mean, where's like Redfall? Wasn't that supposed to come out summer of 2022? Like, wasn't that announced last year? by
yeah, but
Microsoft.
no one. They had showed no gameplay first time ever. Of course, it wasn't going to come out that time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess it just seems like there's not as much coming for these next gen systems, but I know there is.
Yeah, and I saw some people talk about the idea that maybe this generation will be like a 10-year generation, simply because the chip shortage and all those things, that we might actually have till 2024, 2025 these cross-gen games, simply because we don't, you know what I mean? Like we could see a long time for these consoles. We don't necessarily need to jump off of cross-gen if they're not enough of them being made.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Anyways, I mean, the state of play, yeah, it happened. I guess we'll hear again from Sony at E3 or around E3 because they won't be there. Before we get into Elden Ring, some other news. Advance Wars 1 and 2 reboot was delayed due to the war in Russia and just being a little too...
In Ukraine, but yeah.
In Ukraine. Just being a little too probably on the nose, especially considering it's, war and tanks and everything.
Yeah, totally understandable, I think.
It's understandable. I'm also a little bit disappointed that because I this was on my radar. Like, I want to get it eventually, and it already was delayed from last fall. Presumably because last fall had such a stacked lineup for Nintendo, they didn't need it. So when do you think this is going to release?
Probably. I mean, I don't even know if they want to give a firm date yet, simply because they don't know what's happening in the world.
Exactly.
How long it's going to be.
Exactly.
I hope it comes out in like the fall, let's say September or August, but who knows really what's going to shake out. It could be.
I mean, it depends what happens with the war in Ukraine, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Exactly. Yeah, you don't really know.
I mean, I can see this not coming out for like 3 years, and like them just not talking about it. In one day, they're gonna be like, "Hey, it's out now." Like, that's over. Or they could pull out of Ukraine next week, and then it's coming out in October.
Yeah. The other thing is, they could release it, let's say, during a wartime. Like, there's often wars. Not to
There's always war. Yeah.
Not to downplay the war at all, though. I'm just saying, unfortunately, if the war does persist for 6 months or a year, it will be kind of normalized, unfortunately. Which means that it's not as weird to put out a war game, considering there's going to be other war games and gun games and killing games coming out. It's not as weird to put it out, where right now it is on the nose. If they release a game 3 weeks after a large war just started.
Well, the last thing they need is to be releasing like a tank strategy game, and like the day before there's like a massive bombing that is tragic.
Exactly, yeah.
The first Advance Wars launched on September 10th, 2001. So
yeah, I saw that. Crazy.
So it's like kind of this not funny, but I mean tragic thing. And I mean, some people even speculated they might just cancel this outright. What do you think they'll do that?
No.
Me neither. There's a few people.
There's millions of dollars invested in this game.
Yeah, it looks really good. I mean, and the funny thing is, they probably could have got away with just releasing it. I mean, it's cartoon graphics, and like you said, like every month there's a war game coming out. I did read that. I mean, just even also knowing Advance Wars, one of the enemies is almost similar to Russia in their in their design,
dialect too. Yeah.
So that might accent also be
And the other thing is, well, Nintendo is such a. I always say this, but they're such a tightly run ship that they, you know what I mean? Like other war games come out and whatever, they don't, Call of Duty lives for this. They're probably happy that there's a war right now because it probably sells their game more as easy as that.
Yeah.
Where Nintendo, the last thing they want is to have one news article released saying, I can't believe Nintendo did this. You know what I mean? Because they don't want that bad press for them. They just aren't like that.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's about a number of other things that they do wrong, like take down YouTube videos and take down ROMs and not release games.
But taking down those YouTube videos is, to their mind, it's preserving their image.
I agree. In other kind of Nintendo news, they announced that they're taking down the Wii and 3DS eShops are going to be closing in March of 2023. So there's a year left.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of people are like really angry about this, and it's kind of expected, but at the same time, it also goes to speak about how Nintendo doesn't really preserve their old games very well, certainly not as well as Microsoft. And there's certain games that'll be lost forever when these shops go down.
I know. I think that's crazy.
Some stuff that's kind of like interesting, you know, like for example, the Xenoblade Chronicles X, which is only available on Wii U. There was like a download packs you could buy to make it have better load times and better texture and pop in and stuff. So, and I definitely downloaded those when I had Xenoblade Chronicles X, but you'll never be able to get those. There's also like a Sonic Worlds DLC that had like Sonic exploring a Yoshi's Island level and a like a Zelda Twilight Princess style level.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was cool. I played the Zelda one. It's like, you know, you go multiple paths and there's little Easter eggs and you get, instead of rings, you get rupees. It was cool, and those will be gone forever. Also, like things like Cloud in Smash 4 and Bayonetta, which did have differences between their Switch counterparts. Those are going to be lost forever. And lastly, like the last thing that's kind of a big thing from Nintendo is the Pushmo series. I do believe they released some sort of physical Pushmo at some time, but Pushmo was a big series on the 3DS eShop and Pushmo World on the Nintendo eShop for Wii U. And I don't know if you ever played Pushmo. I really liked it.
I didn't.
A really, really interesting little puzzle game that really showed off the 3D. But anyways, for our listeners, if you have a Wii U, which you probably don't, you only have 1 year left to buy these things. So run out and buy them. Mm-hmm. Do you have any notes, anything to say on that, Derek? Or?
No, I mean, like you're kind of sharing the news, which I totally agree with. I mean, I didn't play the Wii U as extensively as you did, but yeah, you know, it's sad to see those games go. I even think about, like, you know, the Ambassador Club games. I know those are all on the Switch too, but it just was nice to have all those games kind of in a collection that on my 3DS.
Well, to be honest, a lot of those Ambassador games are not on Switch. Like the 3DS Game Boy Advance games, you mean?
Yeah. I guess that you're right.
The Ambassador games are only available on the people who owned a 3DS in the first 3 months.
Yeah. But you're right. I guess those games aren't really on the Switch yet. They probably will be for Nintendo Switch Online, which I think...
I hope... Yeah, I think eventually Game Boy Advance will come to the Switch Online service. But... Yeah, they never had Game Boy Advance on 3DS. They had, eventually the new 3DS could do Super Nintendo. But you needed a new 3DS for Super Nintendo, which was absurd. So speaking of all that, there's also a demo for Kirby that came out. I wasn't sure if you had tried it yet.
I haven't. Did you?
I tried it. I played it. I actually played it through twice. Once by myself and once with a friend. And I think it's great. I think the co-op is... worked just as well as I had hoped. Like, it actually works really well. It's not like other co-op platformers that Nintendo releases where the second player is just like, you know, like playing 2 players in Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze is almost doesn't make sense. And same with 3D World, to be honest.
Oh, it's funny because most people that I've read about this totally disagree with you with how bad Kirby's co-op is.
Oh, they think it's bad, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's great. Why? What do they like about it?
They find the characters too closely forced to be tethered too close together, and they find that Waddle Dee isn't really a fun character to play because Kirby's doing all this sucking up all the puzzles, all the powers, and you just are Waddle Dee.
Well, but it's meant to be played, yeah, with someone who isn't as good at games, right? I mean, I don't know if it's something
is
that...
Is it, though? Like,
I don't know.
I'm just assuming that.
Well, I don't think... I think if, like, I was playing a single-player Kirby game, like, you and I wouldn't get a ton out of it unless they put, like, a hard mode.
Yeah, so that's a bad...
But Kirby games are known to be more relaxed and easy. And, you know, even just playing through the first world of the friend, you know, there is, like, a boss that, like, you have to take his life bar down, and there's little challenges and stuff. So, and I didn't find that with the camera at all. Like, the camera... for one, you have control out of it, so you can kind of move it around where you're looking, and it follows Kirby. So if Waddle Dee falls off, he just kind of bubbles back.
Yeah, did you play Kirby or did you play Waddle Dee?
I did both. So I did the Kirby the first time, and then when I went back and did it again, I played as Waddle Dee.
I mean, I haven't played it, so I can't speak from any kind of experience. I just heard a lot of people were annoyed with how short the tether was, and it just was annoying to them. Well,
I mean, they also released an overview trailer yesterday, that showed that it has a boss rush mode, mini games with online leaderboards, and it showed some new environments with new power ups and stuff. So I don't know. I'm excited about this one.
I know you are, but you're excited about literally every Nintendo game.
Well, no, I'm probably not gonna get Switch Sports and Fire Emblem 3 Hopes. So there are games that I'm not gonna get. Yeah, I mean, truthfully, it's just a bit about time and money, and there's so many games coming out, especially if you include Switch, that don't really have. I don't realistically have the time to play them. You know. Anyways, let's talk about Elden Ring, because that's the game we've both been playing, and has the
Yeah, you barely played it, but
huge
yes.
reviews. So I'm not as far as you, but I still have played a good 10+ hours of it. Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's amazing. I mean, it's interesting because I'm like the noob coming into it, and you're like the experienced Souls gamer coming into it. So we have a good.
But even me, like I'm experienced, but I'm far from the experienced, Souls person.
No, but I'd put you at higher echelon. You've beaten most of them.
Oh, I've beaten all of them. I'm just saying, I have friends that played every single one day one, where I started with the trilogy. I started with Bloodborne, so I missed kind of bought the Dark Souls trilogy together. That was my first time playing those games, so I'm not as seasoned as them, even though I've played them all.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned that Brandon has like already beaten Elden Ring.
He's already beaten it. He's on New Game Plus. He's platinumed the game already.
Wow. So in what percentage would you say?
For me?
Yeah.
I'm just guessing. I'm probably 1/3 or maybe 40%.
Okay, and there's no way to know, is there? Like,
no, but Brandon, my friend, has told me. I told him where I am, and he's like, "Dude, you're not even close to being done. Like, you're not even halfway." And I've put in, I think, 45 hours,
wow.
maybe.
Yeah. See, I'm way far behind, but
you're not even 5% done the game.
I do still love the game, and like I can't believe how much I've already seen. To me, it's almost kind of like in my mind, it's almost like a follow up to Breath of the Wild in many ways, where it's like that idea of endless discovery at going any direction.
Totally.
That I haven't actually had in any games since Breath of the Wild, other than maybe Sable. But this game, it's something else, because the things you see and the things you can uncover. I mean, you can find a little broken down old fort, and inside of it there'll be like a dungeon, like a staircase that goes down to a dungeon that is full of surprises.
Yeah, like there's one. I don't want to reveal too much to you or our listeners, but there's one area where you're in the woods and you find this little hut, and inside's an elevator, and you take the elevator down, and there's a whole underworld with a whole second map. There's another map.
Wow.
And there's an underworld.
That is a spoiler. I would have loved to experience that for the first time myself.
Well, sorry, it's early on in the game. I thought you might have already explored it, but anyways, I won't say anything more than that. The game is way, way, way bigger than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, it's unbelievable they pull it off, and other little things like everything breaks. Like you can walk into a room and break every table, and it breaks like the way you hit it. Like the physics of how things break is so well done, and it's like during a fight, you'll be in the middle of a fight, you'll be rolling through candlesticks and barrels and tables, and they're all really well modeled. Like it just feels so detailed in ways that other games aren't, in ways that like Ubisoft open worlds feel like copy and paste. This game just the first, what's the first castle called, the one that I'm in? Stormvale. So just like the interior decorating and the ceilings and design of the building itself, like it's so stunning. Like I can't even it's amazing. Like
it's crazy because in some, like you said, some open world games, they do copy and paste a lot of towns or a lot of things, and there is some of that there, don't get me wrong. Like you notice sometimes they use the same castle kind of walls and whatever, the stones or whatever, but still, I'm still playing, and I'll enter a new area or a new like little dungeon or a little secret, and it's a completely different area, and it looks nothing like I've ever seen before. It's totally different. So I just think that's awesome. Where it's one thing I would say. Breath of the Wild, you do kind of notice that the mountains all kind of look the same after a while, and even though there's
like limited biomes.
Yes, exactly, and they do copy and paste a lot of the trees or whatever, but in this game they still do that. I think every open world does, but there's some areas where it's like just one dungeon that's optional, that's hidden in one area that you have to do a side quest to even get to, that I would say most players will never see. And it's a completely huge, new, unique zone with unique enemies, unique palettes, everything that is nowhere else in the game. and it's hidden that most people don't even find.
Yeah.
It's freaking awesome.
It truly makes exploring like more rewarding than probably any game I've ever played.
Yeah, it's way better than those checklist upgrades. You know what I mean? It's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, the amount of enemies too. Like, there's just so many enemy types. It blows me away. It's just fun to, like, you're riding your horse along, and all of a sudden you see like a giant lobster enemy. You're just like, what? And
Yeah.
there's such crazy ideas. And like the one that I really liked was I started killing all these little pots with legs, and then there's like a giant mother pot. And I got in a little battle with them too. So it's just like, it's almost like funny in a way. Some of the enemies, like they're having fun with it.
I think that's, again, I think of Breath of the Wild, but also Immortals Phoenix Rising. I love both those open world games, but you do notice that it's the same enemy with the color swap. In this game, you haven't played enough, but eventually some of the easier bosses become kind of main enemies in the later areas. So like, they do reuse stuff, but again, there are so many unique enemies. Like, I just entered a new dungeon, and there's like 3 or 4 enemies there that I'm like, I've never seen these guys before. I have no idea how they're going to fight. Nothing. Where, if you go back to Breath of the Wild, again, no slander against it. It's a phenomenal game. You do get a lot of bokoblins. You do get a lot of the Stalfos. You do get a lot of the Lionels on the horse. Horse.
I mean, I think Breath of the Wild tried to make up for a lot of the lack of enemy variety with just the amount of animals it had everywhere. So where this game, everything's an enemy more or less. So there is a few things that aren't enemies. Where Zelda had, a ton of animals that were just animals.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So this game is just, it feels like it's unending with the amount of stuff there is. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm 50 hours in, and I'm not even begun to get fatigued. All I want to do is go play more and get to the next area and go see another dungeon and go unlock more. Where I was playing Horizon before, and I probably put in 15 hours, loved it, but even at that moment I was kind of like, well, I would want to take breaks, or it doesn't drive me to come back, because it is a little bit of like, you're doing the same thing over and over again.
Well, that was one of my questions. Like, is it going to be hard for you to go back to Horizon and complete it now, or will you ever?
I think I'll have the same experience I had with the first Horizon in Breath of the Wild, but a different feeling, I think. So the first one, when I went back to Horizon, I felt very, very magnetically tied to the ground. Like, you really notice that, in Breath of the Wild, you jump off and use the paraglider, you can climb anything, you can just be up huge heights and kind of see these crazy things. And you play Horizon for Zero Dawn, and you are climbing on those kind of rails, and you do feel very statically stuck.
Yeah.
In this game, I feel like, Horizon Forbidden West, there is a lot more dynamics with where you can go, and it gets closer to that kind of Breath of the Wild feeling. But it does still have that kind of checklist open world feel where you're doing the same task, and the icon appears on the map, and you're doing six different places. You're doing the same task, different places. Where, Elden Ring, there is no checklist like that. It's just amazing discoveries and amazing little nitpicking stories that these NPCs tell you to go somewhere, and then all of a sudden you discover not just like a cool little chest or a +1 on your skill points. You discover a huge sprawling labyrinth with a boss at the end, and like some wicked item. Like, it's huge.
Just a question for you. You might have a better understanding of how the setup of the world works, but what's stopping me in Elden Ring from just running right to the end boss? Like, does it have anything like that? For me right now, I don't even like know what the goal is. I'm just kind of like running out there and powering up, and I stopped at this castle because I know it's where the first boss was, but
yeah, so a few things is, one, I just found out today the world record for beating Elden Ring is under an hour right now.
Sweet Jesus.
Yeah. So, and the other thing is,
but that's got to be them just glitching from the beginning, right?
No, I don't know about glitching, but there are like little teleports and like evil chests that put you in certain spots. So people have learned like the optimal route to kind of get around things and get through these almost traps to send you into a later area, but then survive it and get further ahead. But there are these major bosses. You're fighting one right now. And those major bosses give you a piece of the Elden Ring is kind of what it's about. And I think you don't need all of them. I think you need a couple to kind of get to one of the last areas of the game. So and I think you can even get in a secret way into that area without any of the major bosses. Like I think you can beat the whole game only fighting like 3 of the bosses at the end of the game.
Okay.
But there's easier pathways through everything. Like for example, the castle you're in, to get through it to the north side of the castle, you have to beat that boss. But there is another way. I haven't even discovered it, but I just heard there's another way around that castle if you go over like the cliffs and bluffs that's intended to be there for you to get around the entire castle, never having been in it.
Okay,
at all.
so so just to note, I think I did that initially. I think I ran around the castle initially and got to the other side where like there's swamps and stuff.
Oh, okay, you did do that.
And
I did not do that.
Yeah, it's not that hard. You just go around the side of the castle, like under the bridge, and you got to fight a lot of wolves on the way there. But then what happened was I noticed that I had gone beyond where I was, like I wasn't strong enough to kill anybody. So I was like, oh, this sucks. I'm getting killed by every little thing. I'm not able to even get enough ruins to power up. So I'm like, let me go back to the beginning and explore that area again. And then kind of went through again, then ended up at the castle when I realized that there was this first boss that I was missing. So I did, by not even knowing, I did that, you know?
Yeah, so the most important thing I would say for you, I know we're now giving tips, but follow the arrows that
that is what I'm doing now. Yeah.
I mean, you should still go off the beaten path because, like, you know, I told you down south is a really awesome place to go. Just check it out. And you know, once you kind of get after that through that first castle, you can kind of almost go any direction, and you'll, like, for me, I have like 8 or 9 or even 10 like big areas that I want to go and explore.
But when you, like, I guess, do you have a sense of which areas you're supposed to go to so you are leveling up properly? Like,
yeah, so I mean, like, there are areas where, you know, I still get one-shotted or two-shotted by big guys or whatever, and I'm like, that's not a place for me right now. And another thing you can kind of tell is how much XP you're getting versus how much you're dying. So, like, you know, if I kill a guy and I'm getting XP that seems reasonable for how much it takes for me to level.
By XP, you mean ruins?
Yeah, sorry, runes, not runes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, you know, if I got 50,000 runes from killing a normal guy, I'm like, well, clearly this is way above me, and I died 15 times trying to beat him. Or if I go to a place and I'm getting 10 runes, that also isn't very good because, you know, I need 30,000 to level or whatever it is. But yeah, you kind of just got to feel like once you kind of do that first area and then you kind of unlock another area, you get a good feel of like, oh, this area is just too tough for me. I'm just dying. I'm bashing my head against the wall. And often when you talk to the NPCs, they kind of give you a good direction of where you're supposed to go. Mm-hmm. And again, those the checkpoints, they give you a good directions of what you're kind of trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so I was going to ask you, where does this stack for you with all the other Souls games?
Currently, this is number 1 by a lot.
Okay, and so another question: this clearly going to be on your Game of the Year list this year. Do you think this is on your Game of All Time list, like top 10?
I need to play more and finish it and kind of sit on it for a bit, but I think it probably is on my top 10 of games of all time.
Okay, wow. I mean, I've got
I really loved the game going into before even playing it. I loved it all the way through, but the more I see and the more I realize how absolutely insanely it's the insane amount of interesting content.
So you're loving it more as you get deeper, not getting tired.
Yeah, like again, like I'm gonna tell you, just this isn't a spoiler. I met this guy in a woods, like one of the characters, and then eventually I saw him later, and he told me, and he and his friend told me about this place to go, and I went there, and it was like 5 or 6 hours of these like completely huge areas, castles, bosses. Like it was like the longest side quest ever, and at the very end I got this crazy cool weapon. But it's like as if you didn't meet that guy, you might have never ever seen that area. You know what I mean? It's like just and I was like, oh my god, like it never ended. I was like, this is wild. Like it wasn't just a little dungeon. It was like huge map areas that were hidden and I was like, this game is wicked.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not the biggest game ever, is it? As far as
open worlds go? I mean, like, I don't know, Minecraft, but no, I think Assassin's Creed games are much bigger worlds.
Okay, it's more repetitive.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some that feeling I kind of had where I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I mean, because I played video games when I was a little kid, when they were like the graphics were a lot worse, and there was kind of this moment when I got to play games like Red Dead Redemption 2, where I'm like, it hits me where I'm like, wow, this is the cowboy game I've always dreamed would exist. And Breath of the Wild kind of hit that with what Zelda was to me, from Ocarina of Time, and now this game almost feels like, wow, this is the medieval open world game that I've always wanted to exist.
This is like the dark fantasy, or just the fantasy RPG. Like, I know you never grew up with it or played it ever, but like I've played D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, with my friends, and this is like that kind of experience, like visualized and put into real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a spectacular undertaking, like this game.
It's and again, like I just can't say this enough, Peter. You've scratched the surface of the surface. You've scratched the dust.
No, I have
off the polish.
Okay, but like you said, you didn't realize that I'd gone around the castle and I had opened up a chest that spat me out way to the east in this kind of red world. So I have seen areas beyond this little bit intro.
Trust me, even I know exactly the two spots you're talking about. You have seen absolutely nothing of the game. Absolutely nothing. Like, not even remotely. Like, you've seen nothing.
What do you think they're going to follow up with, this team? Like, now that they've hit this apex, like, do they just all retire collectively? Like,
I think they're going to make DLC, and then I think the real question is, are they going to abandon, like, forget what game they make. Are they making Elden Ring 2 or Bloodborne 2 or, Dark Souls 4 or whatever? Forget that. The question is, are they going to go back to the smaller maze-like labyrinth of intertwining worlds of Dark Souls, or are they going to stick on this, you can pick any path to go Elden Ring style? You know what I mean? Because in Dark Souls, you could pick 2 or 3 areas and they kind of intertwine and they got to new areas, but you eventually reach points where you are roadblocked by a boss.
Yeah, I know. That's what made me kind of get off of Bloodborne.
Yeah, where this game is truly like you can just turn around and you can, for the most part, you can probably skip almost every boss in the game. So you can kind of just turn around and find somewhere else to go. And I'm just curious about what their plan is for a future game, knowing how well it's reviewed and probably sold. Are they saying we got to keep doing open world? Or are they going to say, hey, we did 6 years of an open world game, let's make a smaller game like Sekiro or
well, maybe
Souls.
There is a way to do something like Sekiro, but without the gatekeeping of bosses. Like, keep the open structure without necessarily needing this size of world. Because I wonder if they're going to be able to pull off this type of game again, like this size and scope.
I agree with you. And the other thing is, like, I have a lot of faith in FromSoft, just because I love all their games, and a lot of people do, and they really haven't struck out yet.
Well, Miyazaki is amazing game director.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I really have no idea which kind of direction they're going to take. But again, this game is absolutely phenomenal, in one of my top 10 games of all time, and I can't wait for you. I hope, even if you chip at it away for the next 8 months and play for an hour or 2 a week, I don't care. I hope you just keep seeing more and more, because there's just some crazy shit in the game.
I love this game so already, and I'm definitely gonna keep playing with it. I mean, I know it's long, but I plan to beat it eventually.
Good.
But it just might take me a little longer, because I need to be a little over leveled for the bosses and stuff. It took me a long time to beat that first boss.
Yeah, but eventually, don't forget, like, you will get better at the game, but there are some really broken, in a good way, things that you can do in the game to make, like, most bosses really easy and most enemy encounters pretty easy. You just get some really strong spells, some strong ash arts.
Well, to me,
you'll get some good stuff.
Finding those AI partners is huge. I didn't realize you needed to find them first.
Yeah, you won't always. Not every boss will have those. Just
oh, really? Okay, because I found that the first boss with an AI partner and summoning wolves, I could literally just muscle through the boss. Like, I could, like, I took me a few tries still, but I was able to, like, one time just to summon, have the AI partner, and literally just wail on him, and I did it. So
yeah. Not every boss is like that, but your actual summons, like your wolves, you can eventually get stronger ones and make them stronger and stronger to the point where, like, I have a summon that I'm pretty sure I could use and then, just stay in the corner and it would beat the boss for me. Yeah.
Well, I do find there's a few things with the game where I feel a little overwhelmed by the amount of systems going on and things like that. So it's a good and bad, because on one hand it's kind of made me resort to looking online and reading strategies, and I like that. I like that gamers are like going online to like form communities to figure it out amongst themselves. Like it's kind of an old school feeling. And it does beg the question, like, is that actually kind of a good thing? Should the game let you know? Like, for example, when I missed the summoning bell, and I'm like, a chunk way through the game, or like 4%, like you said, and unable to summon anything, and like literally not knowing why, and having missed this thing, and having to go and buy one that looks like a random item on a list of huge items from a store at the keep. Like a regular game like Zelda, or a more accessible game, would make sure you got that summoning bell,
Yeah, so I totally agree with you, and I get the con about that, because one of my friends that he's playing the game too, Neil, he's been messaging me. He's like, oh, what do I do with this certain item? And I'm like, they only work if you have this other certain item at the very beginning, like near the beginning of the game, that he missed. So he's like 30 hours in and had the same experience as you, where he missed a really key item that kind of, there's a whole system for this one item he missed. Well, and he's like, I'm getting all these other things for the system, but I don't really know what the key item is.
I take it that's something I don't have yet, right?
I don't know if you have it or not.
Okay.
You can probably find it, but I don't think you've explored all that first area. It's in the first kind of big area.
Okay.
But all I want to say is that's kind of the essence of these From games. You hit on the head one of the 2 points I want to make. The first is the community loves being together on this. I love posting and getting vague hints for some things, and talking with Brandon while I play, and just saying, hey man, like did you do this? Or I'm texting Neil and saying, hey man, I found this crazy thing at the bottom. I don't want to ruin it, but I found this crazy thing at the bottom of a dungeon. Did you find that same thing? And he'll say, oh yeah, or no, I didn't. I got to go check somewhere else in that castle then. And so I think that experience is really cool. And the second thing I would say is, these games are designed where you're supposed to go through and feel like you saw so much, and then you walk away, or you're talking to people and you realize you missed so much.
Yeah, like when you were like, did you get the secret boss? And I thought you were talking about the giant pot boss.
Oh yeah.
And then I saw online, I'm like, no, there's another huge boss that I literally like ran by the room and missed them.
Yeah, that giant basement thing, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that's what's also really cool is, every person, no one does 100% of the game on their first playthrough. And whether you want to go back or not is fine. But the thing is, like, you even without that bell, you would have eventually progressed. You could have beaten the whole game without that summoning bell. You would have missed out on some really cool systems. But it's the same thing as, like, what I just said. If you don't meet that one AI NPC, you might miss a whole area of the game that I thought was really, really cool. And I think that's what makes these games really intriguing, is one, people want to see everything, and they're talking about it and discussing how to unlock it, and kind of want vague hints sometimes, or clear directions, or just want to miss things if they miss them. But I just like that idea of, there's so much to miss. I think that's really cool. It's like you can beat the whole game and realize, oh damn, like there's the boss like I totally missed, or this item that could have changed everything for the whole game. I like, the idea that it's not force-fed to you. You have to put in that effort to see more and more of these really cool things.
Wow. I can't wait to play more of it tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited. And that's another thing that I love too, is not just asking questions and whatnot, but I like hearing, like, Neil is a few hours behind me, and you're quite a ways behind me. I like hearing, how you beat the boss. Or I like Neil and I dissect. We talk about every boss fight that we've both done. We talk about every room and every dungeon. Like, we go through all that. Like, we just love, like, we text all day talking about what we did the night before, and like what we're doing. It's a freaking odd, like, I love that part of the game.
Wow. Yeah, I really think it's gonna end up being game of the year.
Yeah, me too. I can't, unless Breath of the Wild 2 and comes out and really blows us away. Starfield maybe, or God of the War, but I can't see Elden Ring being top.
I hope that Starfield fulfills that kind of, how I was saying, the childhood dream of a cowboy game and a medieval open world
of being. Yeah,
I hope that Starfield fulfills that kind of what I thought Mass Effect was gonna be. Like
a sci-fi space game,
but open, really, really open, and overwhelmingly huge. I guess the one thing that with Elden Ring that does. I don't know if it bothers me or what it is, but there's the horror element to it, and there's almost kind of this like unrelenting feeling to the game where like you're never safe. And you, when you think you're safe, you're not. And I like that feeling because it makes it feel a little bit like a survival horror in a way. But also, it doesn't have that kind of relaxing moment of like, being Link and riding down the beach and going to towns where you have this good warm feelings for the town members. Like it doesn't have the nice side, which this I'm not saying it's a complaint. It's not what they're doing.
No, yeah.
But it's just interesting as a note. It's like the one thing, there is no respite. Like you're never in a town to chill and have a story element. And
yeah, like I think a good example or a good word to describe it is the game is all oppressing.
Yes.
Right. Like and like I'll give you an example again. So you can talk to an NPC. And he might say, oh, like, can you give this certain item to this other NPC? She's sick. Like, I really need you to do that. And then you give that, let's say that potion or whatever, that item to the other NPC, and it kills them. And then you go back and realize the first person was actually a traitor all along. Like it's like this weird game where you really can't trust. And I'm not talking about specifically this game. I just mean like that's a lot of Souls games. They do that kind of stuff. You can't trust even the people around you. Like even the people you buy items from. You don't know. There's some cool experiences where there's this person in Elden Ring. I'm not going to tell you where or whoever, but you trust them. That you think like, oh, they're giving me things. They're helping me out, whatever. And then you turn out and they're totally evil and against you, and they've just been ploying you for the whole game. And I was like, oh my god, like there's no one. And I like that feeling where
I love that.
Like there's a lot of times where you're like, do I really want to do what this person's telling me for this quest line? And it's like it seems like a quest. You're like, do I really trust this person? And like, why are they alone in this broken down shack in an evil area? Like what? Like why would this old decrepit man be in a shack surrounded by monsters if he's not evil, but he's like telling me to go do something good, but I don't trust him. I don't know. I love, like, I agree with you. There is no sense of respite where you can even pause or relax the game. But there's also is that kind of cool feeling of, you're like always standing on edge, and like the hairs in the back of your neck is always kind of alert, and you know what I mean? Like you're always kind of questioning or nervous around any corner,
Yeah. No, it's spectacular. Like, I really do believe, it's one of those apex gaming moments where we are like
changing gaming history. I think.
Yeah, like I think you're gonna see the influence from this game for forever, and I also think that it's gonna change what we look at in open world games.
Totally.
I also hope that Breath of the Wild 2, whenever it does come out, doesn't feel dated because of this game. I think one of the major things too is just the graphics are really amazing. And I know that's been a big complaint on Reset Era. I think they complain way too much about graphics. I am playing on Xbox with VRR, so it kind of cleans up the frame rate issues, but I do notice it's not 60 perfect.
And I've been playing on PS5 and I don't have the VRR, and I notice it too, but it's like it's not terrible. It's like drops it to 45 or 50 at worst. Like it's really not.
It's not a big deal.
The game is so good, I don't even care.
And it's one of those things that going from Elden Ring and then playing Kirby on my 65-inch OLED is like you got to kind of get used to that jump, because you're going to 720p at 30 frames, and the art style is great in Kirby, but it's just the detail is not there from Elden Ring. So I'm really curious about how Breath of the Wild 2 is going to handle that when you start to play and you're like, wow, this is 30 frames and things are popping up right in front of me. And I think, I just don't know how they're going to pull that off on Switch with the I just don't know. This game is, I just don't know, because this game couldn't even run very well on base consoles, right? Like on PS4 and Xbox One, I think it's 30 frames, and actually pretty amazing. It's even on those systems at 30 frames, to be honest.
Totally. And again, just the sheer size. It's just, you've seen a few of those areas where you're just standing on the cliffside and you just peer down. You can see like endless amounts of places to go and endless dungeons and castles on the other cliff sides across the way. Like, and you can go all those places. Like, I think that's just awesome.
Yeah, it's breathtaking is what it is.
Mm-hmm. That's a great word. Yeah.
So yeah, it's an incredible 10 out of 10 game. It's amazing.
And again, you've only scratched the dust off the polish off the surface.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, speaking of the future of this year and what else is coming out, what we know is coming out. We didn't actually touch on this on the news, but the new Pokemon was announced coming out this fall.
Violet and Scarlet, right?
Violet and Scarlet has. I actually didn't know what to make of it because the logos look so bad. They look like they're photoshopped by a first timer. But the premise and what they showed of it actually sounds really good. Like it's kind of sounds like it's taking some of the best elements of Arceus. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of cautiously optimistic about these ones, and some of the I guess they didn't really show in-game graphics, but they showed some kind of concept art and some renders, and I think it looks really nice. But more importantly than all that, I do think it maybe hints at that I don't think that Breath of the Wild 2 is going to come this year. I really don't anymore.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
And it kind of hit me the other day. I actually think we know Switch's entire lineup for the year. Maybe there'll be one thing announced, but we kind of know it, don't we?
What do you think? What do you think the holiday lineup is? The fall holiday lineup? No, I strongly disagree with you, but you can keep going.
I think we have Splatoon in August. I think we've got Xenoblade in September. I think we've got something from Tokyo EAD, like the Donkey Kong game or a Mario game in October, and that's the one unknown. And then Bayonetta and Pokemon. But I can also see it being something like lamer, like a Mario Baseball or a Zelda remake, and that's the unknown. But I think for the most part we know the holiday, which is Xenoblade, Bayonetta, and Pokemon, and that's still a huge lineup, especially coming off of all the games they're going to be releasing through the year, including Splatoon and Mario versus and Rabbids, and you know what I mean? Like, when you really think of how many games we already know of announced, and now with Advance Wars able to slip in there somewhere, like they have a stacked line of exclusives. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if we're going to get like a lot more games announced, but we'll see. But I think in terms of big games for this year, I think with Elden Ring, comparing what could be game of the year, I really think it comes down to God of War or Starfield. And I'm leaning on Starfield. Like even Elden Ring, like playing it and like fighting the enemies, it makes the first God of War look really bad to me. I know God of War, the first one, has like cool graphics, but like it's like the amount of enemies you see in 20 minutes of Elden Ring, and the intensity of the battles, and also like the range of things that can happen during the battles, and the density of your item customization and move customization, like the amount that's there in just an hour of Elden Rings is like all of God of War.
Totally agreed.
So I'm kind of like, wow, what's God of War sequel gonna do? It better just ramp up the kind of cutscene FMV fight scene stuff, like, because I just can't imagine it doing anything close to what Elden Ring's doing.
Like, a lot of people loved God of War. I really liked it, but I found it a game that was really almost small in scope.
I agree. I didn't like it.
Extremely high polish. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it did look great, no glitches, played really well, but you're right. Like, there was very few enemies, very few kind of areas. It did feel kind of that linear. It wasn't necessarily linear, I guess, but it was kind of this open world, but linear open world. Mm-hmm. And it did feel kind of small in its entirety, where you have Elden Ring, and I totally agree. It might not be as perfectly polished as God of War was, but damn, there's so much there.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that, to be honest, that Sony would hire FromSoft to make the next God of War and make it exactly like Elden Ring, but in the God of War universe, because that would be freaking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, just because I find God of War, it is a little bit more of a story. It is a little bit more cinematic, where the gameplay isn't as important. It is still important and whatnot, but now they've kind of moved away from God of War being these action RPG games and moving them to more being those third-person cinematic games like Naughty Dog.
Well, and I don't like that direction myself. So
yeah, I mean, I'm just telling you, I think that's the direction. So I'd be shocked if Sony. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I opened that question up because I've seen other discussions about like what other series could get the Elden Ring's treatment, and it's almost like the Breath of the Wild treatment, right? It's like what games just break down all the barriers Are there any games that you would like to see that kind of?
Yeah, I really would love to see Sonic pull it out.
Are you serious? Isn't that what the new song is going to be, like a trashy open world?
Yeah. I don't really know. Like, I would love. That's a tough question to drop.
For me, I mean, I know my answer is Mario. I can't wait for Mario to be what Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring is, with that no barriers. Go anywhere, find stars here, find platforms there.
I would love
shoot to a star here.
I would love this, and you mentioned it a few times, though. I mean, it's not really related to Elden Ring, but just a good open world, like just lots to do and see, and little discoveries would be Pikmin. I would love to just I find a little leaf or something. You push it aside with your Pikmin, and all of a sudden it's a tunnel to this huge, awesome area. And it's just kind of this big world that just has so many endless little discoveries and things to collect and find.
I would absolutely love that. Like taking the open world sensibilities of these new big games
and sense of discovery,
and bringing that to Pikmin, where it's like in Pikmin 3 you're just in one giant world, and like you have this many days, and you can go this way, you can go that way, and when the days are up, you have to start again, and you can go the next way next time. Like, I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A long time ago, I was like, when I wanted to be a game designer, I had this one idea for a game where it was like Majora's Mask, where you only had 3 days, but at the end of those 3 days, that you saw the ending and the game was over. Except there's like 40 different endings, and the way you play the 3 days can be completely different depending on which direction you go.
There's a game like that called 12 Minutes, eh?
I know, I've heard of it, but it's the graphics are so, basic.
Yeah, I heard the game was absolutely terrible too.
Sorry, you said 12 Minutes. There's another game like it. Isn't it called 1 Minute Hero or something?
I don't know. I just know 12 Minutes was atrocious.
Yeah, but that's different because like you're in one condo, and it'd be more like a world to explore.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I'm excited to see what else comes. I mean, I think Starfield and Breath of the Wild, like I kept saying, they have a lot to answer to now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think at the end of the day, like, we can both just kind of agree that Elden Ring has changed the game for open world games forever.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was always saying they've kind of mastered the way first-person shooters play now. They've mastered the controls and the setup, and like to the point where every developer kind of copies a template. Mm-hmm. And they've kind of done the same with third-person shooters now and like cover shooters. And I was kind of saying, well, they haven't really done that with melee combat. They've done it in tournament fighting games like Smash Bros. And Street Fighter, where it's like 2D plane, but they haven't really figured out 3D melee combat. Like Zelda's is still so primitive, right? Mm-hmm. And I can't really think of another game that really polished and does it well. I hate the way Ubisoft almost all their games play.
Yeah.
So I feel like you'll probably say, oh, the Souls games did this already, but to me, Elden Ring has finally kind of done that, and it's almost set this kind of staple of how to control defense and dodging and cooling down and stamina cooldown. That like it works perfectly in my mind, and I think it could even work in a multiplayer sense. So I think that the melee combat system they've evolved over the years is the best melee combat system ever.
I totally agree. And, you mentioned Dark Souls have already kind of done this. And you're right, the core is still those kind of Souls games and Demon Souls. But they've done some really awesome changes to Elden Ring. One with the stamina bar, after a fight, you have infinite stamina.
I know, that's awesome.
Right? Where other games were not like that. You actually had to wait for your stamina to go back up, and you're just sprinting to a new place. And that's amazing. The horse is awesome. Addition to have horse combat, you can jump off and continue that fight.
Best horse combat I've ever seen in a game too.
Yeah, awesome. And I don't know if you've fought any bosses on a horse yet, but
yeah, well, I don't know. They're maybe not bosses, but I fought giant enemies on my horse.
Yeah, but there's some like bosses are the guys with the health bars at the bottom. Okay, so yeah.
But there's mini bosses like the Pumpkinhead guy. He wasn't a main boss, but he had a health bar at the bottom.
Then he's a boss. You don't say mini boss. He's just a boss. Like,
okay.
He's a weaker boss. He's a dungeon boss or whatever, but he's a boss.
Okay.
It's just easier for us to describe, to talk about it later. But I agree with you. Even the idea of the amount of different things you can do in Elden Ring. In Dark Souls, you have those swords and shields and roll and parry and whatnot. But they added the jump attack, jumping in general. They added the guard counter. They added all the summons. They added way more spells, and they added those sword ash attack, like the special attacks. There's just so much to the combat now, and it's still at the core from the Souls games. But I agree with you. Like it's the pinnacle of melee combat without a doubt.
I do wonder how balanced the combat is in a multiplayer sense. So like, could they leave this open for multiplayer battles, like 4-on-4 or 8-on-8, and like would it work? And would someone walk in with a certain summon and spell and just wreck everybody, and you had to have that summon and spell,
Yeah, so you can play invasions already and do those kind of.
But it's 1-on-1, right?
Oh no, you can actually do like 3-on-1, I think, or 3-on-2. Like there's some interesting kind of things that can happen. You can have like people join your game and then invade other people's games, or you can have parties get invaded. There's some interesting stuff. But Brandon, my friend who's level 150 or whatever, he said, he invaded some people or got invaded, and some people are just so good and strong that they can like one hit you with their jump attack because they just have the best way to do that. Mm-hmm. And other people have a crazy spell that one hits you, whatever. And he speculates that the first DLC for this game will be a PvP like Coliseum kind of area. And he thinks, there's a lot of ways you can restrict it. You can have no rules, use whatever you want, or you could have no summons allowed, or you could have no one can be above level 80 or something like that. Okay,
cool. No magic, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of just different things. But you're right. There are some builds for PvP that are just destructive, and there are some builds for PvE that make the game a joke too. But that's kind of the fun of it too, right? Because eventually you'll get two people that have the most different broken builds fighting each other, which could be really interesting.
I would love even like a tower defense or horde mode where you and your friends are like, in a Coliseum, and we have to fight off all the non-playable character enemies,
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be
that's
awesome.
why like some people, I know I haven't really gotten to the online in any of the games, and I'm sure you haven't either. But that's why people like throw down their summon sign outside of a boss, because you can get called and then you are helping someone else beat that boss for them.
Yeah.
Right. So like, that first boss, Margit, that you've beaten, you could actually, someone else might join, and then you just go and help them kick the shit out of that boss this time.
Yeah, I think as far as I know, the Xbox Online is having some problems, but hopefully that gets fixed.
Yeah, I haven't played too much of the online. Like I'm not. I play these games for the single player experience, but I just know that there's a lot of cool online stuff you can do.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, there's tons and tons to explore here. It's almost amazing that a team. I don't even know how big FromSoft is, but I can't imagine they're the same size as a Rockstar or Ubisoft's team.
No,
so.
Yeah, but this game took them 5 or 6 years, and this is not as polished as Red Dead Redemption 2, right? This game is not as massive as Red Dead Redemption 2.
But the controls and the AI, I mean,
yeah, but
in Red Dead Redemption 2, it's like a basic shooter. Like, in this game, like
that's
you have
more
so
like a
many
skill
enemies.
thing. That's not a high. That's like a high caliber thing, not a high quantity of employees thing.
No, yeah, I see what you mean. And in Elden Ring doesn't have the complexity of AI or the weather systems, but still, it's an incredible feat. But yeah, I mean, that's what I've been playing. I don't know if you've been playing anything else for the what we've been playing section here.
No, that's it. I put Horizon down, and this is all I've been playing.
So
and I want to play more and more.
Our next, I guess what's the next game you're getting, Derek?
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe New Courses.
And that comes out next week. I'm pretty stoked for that.
Yeah, and I'm also going to be playing Returnal when the co-op comes out on the 22nd. And I also am going to be playing Tunic and Shredder. I'll try Shredders as well on Game Pass. So Tunic is that indie game.
When does Shredders come out?
Shredders comes out on the 17th, and Tunic comes out on the 16th.
What's
so Tunic?
Tunic? Is that
Tunic's that Fox.
That's finally coming
Zelda
out.
Game. Yeah,
and that's coming out on Game Pass, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait for that.
I'm like 80% sure it's coming out on Game Pass. That one you might have to buy, but Shredders is on Game Pass for sure.
Oh, both of those look really, really cool to me.
Yeah, so that's what I was trying to say is like March is crazy. Like I have a huge game I'm still halfway through. I have Horizon. I have Mario Kart. I have Shredded and Tunic I want to play, and Returnal's coming out. It's like just insane.
It's like, how can you even justify buying and playing Triangle Strategy, right?
I know, and like that game actually looks still right up my alley, and I really liked the demo, but I just that game I'll just grab in the summer or something.
Yeah.
No need to grab it anytime soon.
I mean, I'm probably gonna just balance my first half of the year between Elden Ring and Kirby, and as like my cooldown, you know.
Yeah, that's like a palate cleanser.
Yeah, but I mean, and those two are probably not getting anything else until Mario Strikers.
Oh yeah, I'll probably get Mario Strikers too. So yeah, I am the same as you. I probably won't get another game till then.
Cool. Well, Derek, I guess in 2 weeks we'll have more Elden Ring to talk about.
Yeah, that's probably probably the next we have 8 episodes back to back just
It's like a
dedicated to
Nintendo
one
Bros
game.
podcast / Elden Ring podcast. Cool.
Yeah, all right.
All right, well, that's a great... Thanks for chatting this week, Derek. It was another great podcast.
Yeah, this is a great one. This is Nintendo Bros podcast. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment, and
Tell all your friends. Yeah. All right, see you later, guys. Signing out.